Good morning, good afternoon, welcome. All right, we have got a brilliant webinar lined up for us today. I'm going to jump straight into things. It is so great to see everybody. Hi, I'm Angela Shelton. I'm from Answers for Associations, and I will be your host today. And we have two wonderful guests with us. We have the lovely Angela McDonald. She's got a fantastic name, if I do say so myself. So Angela is the Managing Director at Optimum Contact. She is an expert in member engagement, survey strategy, and life cycle management. Her team specializes in outbound call campaigns that boost acquisition, retention, and gather insights to shape strategy that is going to completely change your member experience. And we all love that. Okay, so we've also got another fantastic guest with us. We have Chris Lima. He is the General Manager and Market Research Consultant at MemberBoat. He has more than 20 years experience in research, data analysis, and strategy. And Chris's passion is around helping organizations uncover trends, benchmark performance, and build evidence-based plans that drives engagement and delivers member value. Wow, we are in for an absolute treat today. Hello to you both. I am very excited to have you here. And I would quickly like just to acknowledge the traditional owners on which the land we are all meeting here today and pay my respects to elders past and present. Okay, today's session is going to be about turning member insights to action. If you hadn't already picked up on that from our wonderful speaker intros, Angela and Chris are going to be guiding us through a practical process on how to transform survey results into meaningful strategies that drive engagement, strengthen relationships, and uncover new opportunities for growth. On that, I'm going to hand over to the fantastic Angela to kick us off. I will be here in the chat box. I would love for everybody to jump in, let us know where they're from to kick off the conversations. Please use the question and answer. We will be here. We want this to be super interactive, and be prepared. We have got some fun surveys coming up. So over to you, Angela.
Thank you, Angela.
Oh.
A quick lunch and learn. Are you there, Chris?
Yeah, sure. I just cut out for a second. I wasn't sure if it was on my side. Off you go.
Lovely. Okay. We'll bounce through this really quickly because the hour goes very fast, as Angela said. What we're going to cover today is a bit about how data can give you a strategic advantage, what data we're talking about, data-driven actions, retention and growth strategies, as well as enhanced member experience. And there's lots of opportunities to hear from you as well. We wouldn't be talking about surveys if we couldn't conduct one ourselves. So we're going to be using Mentimeter today. Please grab your mobiles because you'll need to use the QWERTY code that is on the agenda page in the bottom right-hand corner, or the link, whichever's easier for you to participate in the survey. And we're just going to give you a little second to jump into that. All right. Chris, would you like to jump across to our first survey? We're keen to hear from you around when was the last time you ran any research with your members? Just click on the next slide, Chris, and we'll see if that's building now.
Should I click here?
No,
if you haven't had a chance to click on the link.
Just wait, it's starting to build now. Can you see that? Not clicking through on your version? Go out of this slide and then come back in.
2 seconds.
I like your backdrop there. I'd like to be sitting there having a cocktail about now.
Yeah, you got to have dreams, right?
Look, what I can see as the survey builds is that we have some people with us today that haven't surveyed members before. We have some people who surveyed members 2 years ago. Is that building now, Chris?
It is very slowly though. It is coming up. You guys should be able to, can you see that coming through?
We've got a black square.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll read out the stats to you. So we've got a couple of people who have never surveyed members before, so you're in the right place. Thanks for coming. We've got some people who surveyed their members 2 years ago, 5 people who surveyed their members 1 year ago, 9 people who have surveyed this year, and I'm really rapt to see that there's a good number of people who survey their members on an ongoing basis. That's awesome. What that shows us is it helps us move beyond gut feel, and it helps us avoid that loudest person in the room. While we're continuing on in the presentation, we'll work on.
There we go.
You can see it. It's
come
not
through.
building for you.
It's not. It's a slow build.
Okay. All right. We'll bounce through that. And I'll read out the stats as we go if you like. Certainly people can get into the Mentimeter and it's working from what I can see within the program. Did you want to bounce through to the next slide, Chris?
Yep, there we go. Okay, so I'm happy to take on this one. So look, what we're going to be talking through today, guys, is a lot around what to do with your data. And we throw the term around, use your data to have a strategic advantage. And I really wanted to make sure that we hone in and we just kind of unpack these buzzwords that get thrown out a lot when we're talking about data, and we're talking about, the developing strategy off the back of it, and really just make sure that we're cutting through the BS and explain exactly what we want to explain today. So in terms of what we would like you to get out of it, when we talk about strategic advantage, it's about sharper decision making. So it's moving beyond the gut feel or the loudest voice that we have in the room, and really allow you to prioritize what initiatives align with your members. It's about member-centric strategy. So again, another one of those buzzwords that you hear all the time. But what we mean by that is ensuring that your services and programs and advocacy efforts are really designed around what members value most, which ends up building the strongest trust and members feel heard. It's about using data for a competitive positioning. So when I say about competitive positioning, it's about really differentiating yourselves from peers, obviously highlighting the gaps in the market and is there any opportunities for innovation. But equally, when we do competitive analysis and try to understand what's out there, it's also a huge chance to understand where the points of parity are and how can you potentially leverage and work with other competitors or similar peers in the market. Stronger engagement and retention, and this is really the bread and butter. So when strategy is guided by member insights, engagement initiatives are more relevant, they're more effective. And I promise you, if you take insights from these types of webinars and other research courses, it will improve retention and ultimately help you with growth initiatives. And lastly, two more. So second, lastly, operational efficiency. We spend so long on low value activities that really our members don't care about so much. So it's about identifying where to focus so that we can remove the clutter and really hone in on what matters most to members. And it's about evidence for stakeholders. So it's a lot easier walking into a boardroom with a data-driven approach to justify the decisions to boards or funders or any other stakeholders. Okay, so the other big thing that I wanted to make sure that we addressed was around the data. So when we talk about data, I can't see how many people are in the room at the moment, but hopefully there's a few of us. So for some of us, when we're talking about data, you may be experts and know exactly what we're talking about. But even though the heading of this talks about surveys, data expands far beyond surveys. And if we want to make the most out of the data that we've got, and that's the one thing that I can say that associations are rich in, is data. We've got to really understand what's out there and how can we leverage it. So just to very quickly go through the main sorts of data sources that you have on hand and how you should use them. Firstly is your secondary research methods. Oh, sorry, did someone have a question or was someone just unmuted? I'll assume it's just unmuted, but feel free to jump in. So secondary research methods is where I would really urge everyone to start with. So your secondary data sources. And what it's faster, it's ready to use, it saves you time and money. And importantly, it doesn't mean you don't have to hassle your members. There's no effort from them. So from an internal source, I won't go through all of them. You can see them on the screen, but you've got things like membership, your CRM or your AMS, you've got your email campaign metrics, you've got social media data, you've got so much on hand. Probably, arguably, the two most important are the data that you can get from your CRM or AMS and your email marketing metrics. I would always be starting with that. And don't forget how much external data sources are out there as well. So from industry reports to news and media, even all the way up to your AI tools like ChatGPT. Arguably, that could be a primary source depending on how you're using it, but there's a lot in there as well that you could be scraping the net to get a couple of trends. So my tip is always, before going down the path of surveys, even though surveys have paid my salaries in the past 20 years, I would urge you to not start with a survey. You start with what you've got, you identify the gaps of knowledge that you've got, and then you start thinking about primary data, which usually will be your surveys. So these are customized, this is current information, and members feel heard, but it is more costly, it is more timely, and there's a lot more effort involved. So just to quickly rattle off what we mean when we talk about primary data, quantitative research is usually the first that you guys would have come across. And these are your surveys, and it could be online, it could be phone, it could be face-to-face. And Angela can talk a lot about the impact of phone surveys. It could be polls, it could be a quick pulse survey that you're running after an event or after some sort of CPD session. But this really tells you the what. If you need to know the why, what are the motives, what are the drivers, you really need to dive into qualitative research. Now, usually in our quant surveys, we will have a question around why. So these are not mutually exclusive, but they are separate ways of thinking. Qualitative is about trying to understand why behind behavior, whereas in quantitative is really trying to put a percentage sign on what or quantifying what you're trying to find out. So the types of qualitative research that I've been involved with that exist out there are your in-depth interviews, which are your one-on-one interviews, your focus groups, workshops, co-design sessions. And co-design sessions, I really recommend, if you have the opportunity to co-design anything with your members. There's nothing better than services and products built by members for members. The last type is your hybrid research. So hybrid research is, as the name suggests, it's weaving in both quantitative and qualitative. And an example of that might be around usability testing, right? Where you want to test out a new website or a new page of the website, and you want to get as many people as you possibly can. So you get the numbers of where people are going. Are they correctly going to where we want them to go? And if not, where are they falling? What are the reasons why they're not? They're finding challenges. So a little bit of both. Online discussion forums for any of you in this session that might have an online community, for example. For me, this is the mecca of data. If you've got these communities and you're really harnessing the data that comes out of it, you've got a massive amount of quantitative and qualitative data there. So as quickly as I can, this is in a nutshell the different types of data that we want to be looking at. Now, I'll pass it on to you, Angela, if you want to take us through this example.
We thought we'd do a bit of an exercise here, and we're very happy for you to unmute for a second and use your voices and let us know, by looking at this scene, how you could use member data to improve their outdoor event experience. Would love to hear from you. The sort of things that we thought of were around weather control. No one can predict the weather. So weather control would be important. It could be something along the lines of making sure that people had a group to connect with before they turned up to a function like this. It could be quite intimidating for a person to jump into a function. So can I hear from you guys, if you could unmute and let me know how you think you could use member data to improve this outdoor event and the experience overall for the attendees?
Do we have any brave souls out there? I know it's always daunting.
Chris, while everybody's warming up their voices, would you like to add a few things? So we considered weather, we considered matching people up for a buddy, we considered dietary requirements to make sure that people got the right meal. What else could we consider?
So you've talked about quite a few mobility requirements. So we might want to run a survey beforehand, finding out seating arrangements. As you mentioned, we'll definitely want to make sure people are comfortable. So essentially, we're segmenting members, but in an outdoor kind of setting as opposed to our CRM here. We might, I don't know, depending on your association, there might be a certain music preferences, different genres that we might want to do. We might even want to have QR codes like we've had here during the event that people can request music. But the example here really, guys, is about what we're talking about generally is using customer data to improve the overall member experience. And this is a snapshot, not so much about the whole member experience, but you can really kind of, I guess, exemplify what one event, how you can use data for one event is the same way that we would use data for an entire year of membership, except obviously we would take a lot more data and we'll be thinking a lot more touch points along the way.
I think one of the things that we should recognise is that this is a pretty well turned out event for the space. So there's been a lot of work done in terms of perhaps inviting past participants or doing loads of promo to get that number of people along to an event. So that is also how you can use data.
All right, I'll take it that we may not have any volunteers at this stage, so I'll move on, and we've got our next Mentimeter question.
So, did you act on the last survey results? We could see from the earlier question that a good number of people have conducted surveys before. Our question is, did you act on the information that you received back? Jump into your Mentimeter again and let us know how that landed for you and your organisation. Did you or were you able to act on it fully? Partially? Because the data's new, you haven't been able to act on it yet? Or the feedback wasn't actioned? Excellent. Okay, thanks everybody. So we've got a couple of people who have said no, they weren't able to action the feedback. A couple of people have said not yet, so that's inspiring. They're going to, but they haven't got that action plan in play yet. Yes, partially seems to be the main piece of feedback there. People have been able to take on board some of the feedback from people and some of the suggestions. And we have one lone participant, I'd love to know who that is too, sorry, who have been able to action the feedback from their members fully. So love that. All right. Thank you. Chris, I'm not sure why your Mentimeter's not populating there, but
yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? It's just always like that. Tech can always come in the last minute and give you a bit of a surprise.
Absolutely. So
we've got
we were
one
going
more
to try again to see how over time in a word cloud, what actions people have been able to take and how they've used that. Can everybody see that? taking a little bit of time to filter through. Is that active for everybody? New programs. We've got a couple of people who have introduced new programs. Thank you. That's fantastic. New resources. Provided more information in a meaningful form. Thank you. Change in e-commerce. Invites to events. The start of an MVP. Most valuable player? Most valuable member?
I think it's minimal viable product.
Thank you. And I'm very happy for you to pop in some extra information there if you want to. I've got to say, people are very good at contributing to this slide, and I wish you could see it. So event design, new online resources, encouraging member engagement, delivering CPT bundles, less emails, more advocacy, policy adjustments. And personalized outreach. Fantastic. Less emails is coming through really strongly.
I was hoping it would have popped up, but
Somehow somebody used the survey to hire a new team member. Magic. I love it. All right. Well, when we send the recording, we'll make sure that there is an extra slide in there so that you can see all of the ideas that people have been able to take away from surveys and put into place with their member groups. There's some fantastic ideas. Chris, did you want to jump into the next slide?
Yeah, let's get going.
Thank you.
There we go. Look at that. It's slowly coming through. I'm going to blame potentially internet. All right, guys. So for this one, this is really all about these are talking points, really. So we want to spend a little bit of time talking about a couple of case studies, but I just want to set this slide up. There's a little bit of writing on it, but when we're talking about data-driven decisions, I wanted to, again, make sure that we're really on point about what we mean and just really talk about the best use of or the action, the must take actions with your data. And I have spent some time putting together a bit of an overarching theme. So it's about more than dashboards. You know, dashboards are fantastic. And if you can get dashboards, it's one of the things I want to talk about later on in terms of visualization. But it's more about that. It's really about using members, using what members tell us. So through surveys and phone calls and whatever else, and also what they show us through their behavior to refine our values, sharpen our strategy, and give us an edge in retaining and growing our community. And I should have highlighted that word community as well, because that's a really big part of what I want to talk about. We always talk about running a survey for our members, and our members are important. But if we don't have a large community, we don't have that pool of prospects to be up for our funnel to be bringing members in. So I'll go through these and let's go through a couple of examples. So refining value proposition, identifying what it truly means to be a member, means for a member to be a member. And then spoiler alert, so often we get caught up in it's about our services, about our products. I can guarantee you your members, especially in this day and age, are not your members because of your products and services. There may be small exceptions, but they're in it for something else. It's important to be listening to understand that. Segmenting your audience. If you don't have some level of segmentation in your comms, you're really not hitting that mark that's so important these days around expectation of personalization. That leads to personalizing your comms. Example that we'll go through is simple ones. Your younger Gen Z cohorts need completely different types of comms and even channels compared to those that have been members for quite a while and potentially more interested in advocating, for example. Member advocacy. are we using this data? Are we empowering our engaged and satisfied members to be ambassadors? So often we'll run surveys and we'll get those 20% that always answer and really engaged. Can we leverage that a little bit more? Can we film them? Can we get testimonials from them? Can we get them to be our ambassadors? Resource allocation. Are we really using data to identify the programs that deliver the strongest return on member satisfaction? And this is a really key thing that I won't have time to go into today, but I'd love to be able to talk to you if anyone's interested, is around, can you run some sort of correlation analysis? Can you understand which, or even through simple questions, which programs or which pieces of information, which components of your overall membership are the strongest contributor to a renewal, or if you're tracking NPS, to that kind of strong NPS score? And then impact, demonstrating evidence of impact. So example that I've got here, 90% say that your CPD improved their career opportunities. I feel like as association professionals, we're so humble, we're so behind the scene heroes, and really we've got to put on our marketing hats and bolster about the impact that we have on members' lives. So I don't know, Angela, if you've got any examples of clients that you've worked with where they've been able to take action, any of these or something different?
Yeah, we've worked with a number of organisations. One in particular springs to mind, where they created almost a scorecard where they were able to feedback their the information that they had obtained from members, why and how they'd segmented into yes and creating a plan, maybe one day soon and no one ever. But there was transparency around that. And then throughout the year, there were quarterly updates in terms of how they were tracking against their scorecard. And they didn't come out at the end of that program with a lot of information. They touched the information out on regular pulses, I guess, so that they could regularly show members that they were making progress. So I love the idea of being transparent and also providing updates for members along the way to show your progress.
And if in the chat anyone wants to leave something, I know it might be a bit hard to jump on and have a chat now. I'd love to also hear any stories around here. And I think from a value point of view, it's, you know, these sharings of stories that always has so much value in these sessions. But one example that I can talk about is a recent research that we've done with a, let's put them into the medical association, where there was, what we heard back is that there's a lot of focus on GPs within this association and not enough support around allied health. And this has been a really important piece of information, because whilst it wasn't new, what was new was understanding that the huge lack that this not new, but this allied health, this I guess not core component, not core set of members for this association were saying, and how much they were on the brink of potentially leaving and looking for other organizations to support them. And it really came back as well. There was a lot of conversation about refining the value proposition, and it was a real big question that came back to the CEO, came back to the board. What do we do? Do we actually just keep going to our strengths and focus more on GPs because they're doing a fantastic job with GPs? Or do we really differentiate? We create two value propositions. One is for our core set of members, which is around the GPs, and one is around our allied health, which then means that there's a lot more scaffolding that needs to be put in to support those. So that was a real fantastic live example. That's something that's actually taking place now in terms of building those resources, building the comms, personalizing everything so that there are a very distinct set of comms addressing the issues raised from this survey.
Yeah, that actually does tweak a spark for me for an organisation, again, in that medical space or allied health space. they wanted to find out why members had left, had consciously chosen not to renew their membership. So when you're lining yourself up for a tell me what you really think conversation, then you need to be prepared for what your members do have to share. And the members that were surveyed had left the organisation for very real reasons for them. But mostly it was around the value proposition. They didn't feel that they'd been heard for some time, and they wanted from their organisation more than a slight discount on their professional indemnity insurance. And in fact, it wasn't such a great discount. They could approach the insurer directly and get the same thing just by having a practicing certificate or having an APRA number. But the action taken after that, the organisation also got fed back that the board was a bit stale. There weren't new ideas, there wasn't new energy. And the word that somebody used, and we had to provide the feedback very specifically and clearly, was that the board was arrogant. Now, on delivering the information to the board, it was interesting because I don't think that they were ready or willing or able to take action on the feedback. And I'm certain, in fact, I know that the survey was popped in the bottom drawer and forgotten about. Their position was, if they think we're arrogant, then they're probably not the sort of members we need anyway. And they were the exact members that they needed, but what they needed was a change and a change of energy. So when you ask somebody what they really think, you've got to be prepared for the answer.
Yeah, very good point.
Mm.
Okay, so talking about lots around data-driven actions. Now, let's move into retention and growth strategies. And whilst these are separate slides, it's quite obvious that these are all intertwined and they're all relevant to one another. But again, a couple of points that I'll set up the slide, and then we'll go into a couple of case studies around what we recommend that around using data to improve retention and growth strategy, or to feed into your growth strategies. But like I did before, retention isn't about holding on to members. It's about really, can you identify who's thriving, but more importantly, who's slipping? And when is it the right time to nudge for memberships, all while growing? And again, I emphasize the word community. I'll talk a little bit more of that in a moment. So one of the things that I hope everyone does to some extent, and it's not a binary answer, it's not yes or no. Everyone has their finger on their pulse in some way around which members are more engaged than others. But with the tools that we've got out there, I really recommend as much as possible to have some level of engagement scoring. So creating maybe a simple index score about attendance to events, or email open rates, or click-through rates, and flag the members that are trending downwards. Then, like I think most of us at some point would have got an email or a text message from our gym. If you are in a gym, around, we miss you, we'd love you to come back in there. Now, I've spoken to quite a few people that work in gyms. Their business model is always based on making sure that not everyone attends. So it's in their best interest that no one attends, because that means the machines don't get used. They need less resources in there, and they're still getting the money. Great. But every gym membership knows that over time, if people haven't come for a prolonged period of time, they will then realize, oh my God, I've been donating to the gym, and I'll leave. And it's really important to be able to jump in there at that early stage. It's not about scrambling for a renewal campaign in the last 3 months. It's about picking up in the first 3 months if someone hasn't responded to an email and say, hey, we've missed you. And perhaps it's just because your emails are going to spam. It may not have anything to do with your member, but it's about picking that up early and letting them know that you've missed them. Community mindset. community. This is like the one key thing that I try to get everyone to take away from any webinar or any presentations that I do. If you're not growing your community, if you're not getting data from your potentials, the people around, the young people, the people that have left, your lapsed members, you're not filling up that pool of prospects for you to convert later on. It's all well and great to have really engaged members, but if you have any KPI around growth, you have to be doing something around community and understanding them. Optimizing tech, that kind of leverages a little bit what I was talking about, emails going to spam. Have a look at your tech. So often there might be real low-hanging fruit that you can optimize. It may be around certain navigation points on your website. It may be around a file that's not working properly. It may be around a registration for an event that's a bit cumbersome. Can you optimize your tech? Because those little tiny tweaks might mean a lot of additional revenue and a lot more engagement. Growth levers. So can you use data to scale what's already working? Can you amplify referrals? Who are your biggest advocates? Can they refer others? Is there something in it for them? Something that we've worked with quite a few associations, again, with that kind of competitive mindset. Instead of just thinking of other peers and partners or competitors as sheer competitors, is there any way that you could leverage their communities in a way where you contribute back with something, surveys, for example, in the interest of understanding how you might be able to at least understand awareness or understand consideration and why people are not considering you. So what sort of growth levers do you have? And then really understanding what the external trends are. You're much better off to be prepared than surprised when things arise. I was at a conference, at the ACE conference last week, and there was a very interesting presentation by the guys at Membies, and they did a really cool exercise where they got everyone to get up, and we had to look at the person standing next to us. And then we had to change. So we had to turn around, change something about us, and then ask the person if they realized. But before it moved to that simple game, they said, quickly change 35 things about yourselves and then look back. And everyone was just so overwhelmed that nothing happened. And the point that we're trying to make is if you're not making these small changes now, and you're waiting for technology to get to a point where you're forced to make a change, there's going to be a massive amount and it will be overwhelming. So it's really important to keep your finger on the pulse around generational shifts, technology disruptors, evolving economic and geopolitical climates, so that you're prepared with your services, with your comms around what's coming next. Angela, do you have anything to kind of add to this?
Yeah, I guess I just want to share something that occurred recently with an organisation that we were conducting a membership renewal campaign for. So the lady we spoke with was a fellow within the organisation, so she'd been very connected for a very long time. She was a standout in her profession, but she hadn't been engaging. So I'm going to, bang on about the power of a phone call and watching all of these stats across the dashboard. We're still dealing with people. And for this particular lady, she had received her usual, they don't do membership invitations. They send out an invoice, and then they send out an invoice reminder, and then they send out a notification that if they don't contact or make a payment to rejoin within a certain period of time, then they'll lose their post-nominals and their benefits. Now, this particular lady, as I said, very senior, very engaged in the past, but for her, that hurt. She was a single mother, a professional woman, but in addition to that, she was fighting cancer. It was something that she intended to do. She wanted to renew, but the final notification missed the mark for her and her personal commitment to the association. She'd been on different committees and groups for the association over the years, and she felt like she wasn't seen. She was just a number. So by picking up the phone and having the conversation with her, we were able to take on board what she said and what she shared and feed that back to the client, but also to give her additional support in terms of a funded membership for the year to support what she was going through personally. So let's not forget our people. Let's not forget the way in which we use the data that we're talking about is to better connect with our people. And sometimes that's by phone, SMS, and email, just something to show that you can see them and that you care. A short call can uncover some real reasons that a member has disengaged and give them a nudge to reconnect. But at the end of the day, retention and growth comes from members seeing that their feedback shapes something that's real. I suppose that's my piece for all of the data. Thanks, Chris.
No, fantastic. And the one thing that I'll add is a simple one, and sometimes a light bulb moment for some associations, but I hope not for many. This was again a separate medical association that we worked with that was very proud around their membership of 2,000 members and talking about the importance of trying to grow that because there was a lot of advocacy that this association wanted to be doing. But meanwhile, there were 10,000 in total people subscribed to their newsletter. So again, from an advocacy point of view, it's always a lot more interesting to talk about the community that you serve, the sector that you serve, than it is just your members. Of course, we can't hide the fact of what our membership number is. They're going to be on our annual reports, and we've got to talk about those. And it's important because it still is largely the main revenue source for most associations. But even that is potentially changing. There's a lot of talk around diversification of revenue, and with arguably one of the most non-committal generations coming through, we do need to think about how we can be capitalizing on communities. Can they be potentially, can a community member potentially be more valuable as a community member than actually be a member? These are important questions. But from an advocacy point of view, when you angle it, when you position it, that you have 10,000 people within your database, it's a lot more powerful than 2,000 members.
Mm. Mm. We've had people respond similarly around surveys. So generally, if you get a 30 to 35% open and response rate, then you're doing quite well. But if it's the same people all of the time, you're not truly getting your finger on the pulse. So it's connecting with the other 70-odd%.
And that's a really good point. And something that I'd love for all of you to walk away with is, if you are in the process of running your member survey, your annual member survey, even though I've been talking about the fact that surveys may not be the be all and end all, they still are absolutely pivotal. But if you can do that segmentation up front, understand, okay, well, there's a certain segment that are not engaged, identify them and think about a different approach. They may not reply to an email. They may, if they do, they might not answer the full survey because they're obviously unengaged. And this is where Optimum Contact and suppliers like that can support, because it may be through a phone call that you understand what's the problem, or can you answer at least part of my survey, so we've got some information that we can start implementing around re-engaging yourself, who's unengaged, and everyone around who's in a similar boat to you.
I think you're talking about switching up the language there as well. So switching from "can you complete a survey for us" to "we want to hear your voice. Your voice is important."
Absolutely.
Mm.
So I want to move into enhanced member experience, which really is the whole thing, right? So if we're using data correctly, we're hearing from our members and we're implementing this into our services and what we do, we should be enhancing member experience. But what I really want to focus here, and it's kind of mentioned at the top, replacing assumptions with evidence. We want to stop guessing what members value and start really delivering the experiences that prove that we've been listening to them. So one of the things here that I've got in the first section is about walking in their shoes. And this is something that admittedly we have to, as suppliers, as anyone really who's got a website or has some control over a website, we get so entrenched in understanding exactly what should be done. I worked for years with Amazon in the past, and what I loved about them is they were, never proud to say, look, maybe people don't understand, even though it's fairly intuitive, and I think they're going pretty well. They still always looking for ways that they can improve. Can we reduce a click? How are members using this, or in their case, how are customers using this? And that's how we should adapt our website or adapt our registration form. So being able to walk in their shoes, I use the example in this case around the website, but it's about everything. Have you done any usability testing around new pages or around an event registration form? Have you actually asked a member, maybe it's a friendly member that you know, to actually just log on, have a look at it and provide some feedback? Gap analysis. This may be a new term for some. It may be an old term and something that's been talked about a lot, but something that is absolutely critical, and probably another one that I'd love for you to kind of rank up there in terms of takeouts from today. But expectation versus perception. So often, like just last week, I sat down and had a lengthy conversation. Again, I seem to work with a lot of medical associations. I'm not making this up. This was another one. And they had done that. They work with CFOs in hospitals settings, and they had run some really in-depth qualitative research with CFOs everywhere. And there's a lot of rich data that's come out. They've done such an amazing job. And what we've talked about is that there's so much that they need to get done now. There's so much new services, so much new comms. But the very first thing that we kind of landed on is like, you've got to really understand what has come out of your research, what are the biggest needs, and then conduct a gap analysis around what are you already doing. And maybe it's not about developing anything new. It may not even be about tweaking any of your current services, but it may be about elevating awareness around what you've already got. So what I mean by gap analysis is understanding what your members are saying that they want, your members or your prospective members, and what they think that they're getting. Because very often there will be a gap there, and that's where you've got to start. We're already doing this. We just got to bring that up. We've got to raise that so people are aware of it. And then sure, there's a whole lot that you've got to understand around potentially creating new products or new CPD or new aspects in your events. Drivers of engagement, I touched on that before, but really I have a real bugbear with NPS. I think NPS is a outdated use of a metric, but I can understand if you've been tracking it for a long time, that tracking element is important, and I wouldn't suggest you get rid of it. But I do suggest that you look beyond things like NPS and start tracking specific touch points and work out what's really driving engagement, what's really driving renewals and signups. And again, I kind of talk back about that point around try to understand what is it about your segments or your personas, or what service, what events, what is it that is the biggest driver? And it won't be one single thing, it'll be a combination of things. What is it that is mostly driving signups or renewals? Important thing to find out. I won't go too much into value reminders because it's kind of talking about similar things. So understanding through when people are logging on, what are they actually logging on to use? Are they only logging on to for CPD, and they're not really looking into some of the other benefits that you've got, perhaps around insurance, which I know is a common thing that is offered out there? Can you then start to go, okay, no one's really logged onto here. Should we raise the awareness of this and see if it's actually used? Continuous feedback loops. If you do run an annual survey, tell everyone the results. Not everything, but make sure that people know that they've been heard and what you're doing with it. Close that loop back with them. And also, can you replace the huge survey at the end and break it down into smaller parts throughout the year? And the last one I think I've talked about in all is around, can you take this data and really tailor the overall experience to your members? Over to you, Angela. Any comments or thoughts?
I want to dive in on grabbing any connection opportunity. And what I'm talking about there is when you do have somebody on the phone, make sure that that's an opportunity to verify their current details so that you can make sure that your other channels of communication, your emails and SMSs, are hitting their mark. And maybe use that opportunity for a little bit of ongoing pulse point questions. You might want to change that up each quarter to ask a different question to make sure you get a good feel for what people are doing. Opportunities like, I need to reset my password, my credit card's expired for my payment, and all of those sorts of things are great opportunities. Chris and I have had a little laugh about one that we do, and that is when we're doing a renewal campaign for clients, we use the credit card processing time to ask the POS point questions. So we can say, well, look, while the payment gateway does its thing, are you finding the new Facebook page or special interest group important to you? How's that going to meet your needs? Or are you enjoying the new website experience? Just something like that, a quick POS point question while the computer's doing its thing. It may be almost instant, but people expect that they need to wait for the system to filter through. So use that time to make a really meaningful connection. Some other things that spring to mind, and that is, I have a friend who her sole purpose in life is to design government forms, and you might think that might be horribly boring, but what she's actually doing is walking in a customer's shoes and trying to complete the forms to get to the next stage of a process, a difficult process. And I do think that jumping in and having a member experience, as Chris talked about, to make sure that a renewal process isn't clunky, to make sure that something's easy to find so they can self-serve is important and can create a real shift in the experience for the person. I like data personalization as well. So making sure that all of your communication is addressed to the person. So for me, hi Angela, is how I like things to be received. I don't feel valued when I receive a piece of communication that says, "Dear McDonald." That's a really, low piece of hanging fruit there that you can fix to make sure that your salutations are correct. But I received one this morning, which is why it's top of mind for me today. And I think, again, that continual loop that Chris talked about, when members see that their input has created change within the organisation, and that's change that they can touch and feel and see, then trust deepens, your relationship deepens, their satisfaction grows, and renewal decisions become much easier for them. Lovely. Thanks, Chris.
Fantastic. Thanks, Angela. I'm just going to focus in a little bit on this continuous feedback loops, and this is about kind of retelling the story for my last two slides, and I'll try to go fairly quickly so that we can leave a little bit of time for questions at the end. But collecting the data is the tip of the iceberg. Don't worry about all the writing on here. Just really want to focus on these top little icons and just very quickly talk about that. But once you've got your data, whether it's a combination of secondary and primary, and it doesn't matter how fantastic it is, it's only the tip of the iceberg. If you're not going to use that to its full value and you're not going to tell a story around it, you may as well not do it. If you don't have the capacity or the resources to do it later on, it's potentially a real waste of time and money. So some of the ideas that I wanted to just share with you guys and squeeze this into the end, but it's still very important, is around how can you transform data into stories that inspire. And there's a couple of little things, little nuggets here that hopefully will be, plant a little seed in your mind about what you can do. So first of all, know your audience. One size does not fit all. Every time I've conducted research in my experience, there's always at least 2 different versions. One is an executive version. It's 3, 4, maybe 5 slides. It's a very top line. It's actionable. It's tied to the strategy. Our executives don't have much time, so they need it like that. And then our more comprehensive report with implementation steps for our marketing team or a membership team. Using compelling stories of visuals. So can you create dashboards? Dashboards are great. Don't spend all your time on it. They're not the end all be all. They're good for tracking purposes and visualization. If you can use it, great. But infographics or heat maps are also other fantastic ways to kind of visualize what you found out. Obviously charts, but don't overcomplicate them. Keep it to 1 insight per slide. Always ask, if you're creating a deck of slides, or if you're putting together a report, every insight, just ask yourself, so what? Because that so what is the most important thing that you can ask. You found this out, this is fantastic. There are more people there are more members that would like to, that really like podcasts and understanding more about medical issues via podcasts. So what? Is that part of what you guys are doing? Do you have the resources for a podcast? It's important to know, great, but are you going to be reporting? Are you going to be actioning on it? Are you going to be doing anything? So tie everything back to your strategy. Use storytelling to make it memorable. So think of it like you would back at school, where you kind of think, okay, there's got to be some sort of challenge. There's got to be a voice of the member, that aha moment, what we found out, and what's the opportunity. So retention is really down. Here's our challenge. We spoke to our members and they were really unhappy about the events being in certain locations, or the speakers at events. So we had an aha moment. We brought the event back to a more centralized location, closer to trains, and we brought in some big guns. And we had a great uptake of the event. Create a story around what you can. Vox pops. I love these little things. They're fantastic. If you're running research, especially if you're doing some sort of qual, can you grab a little snippet with obviously the approval, the consent of your respondent? Can you share that? We're actually working with a company now called Kintel that specializes just in capturing these little amazing vox pops. And that it's so much more valuable if someone else is telling other people how great you are, not you, because obviously you've got an invested interest. Bite-sized pieces. Use your research insights as content. It really should be a big chunk of your content plan. Benchmarking, contextualize. It means nothing if you've grown 10%, but last year you dropped 50%. Contextualize where you are so people understand, and package insights like a product. It's not a research report, it's a roadmap for improvement. So just a couple of things to hopefully plant some seeds in your mind around how to transform data into stories. And I'll pass it on to you, Angela, for our last question.
Thank you. That's an awesome list. Thanks, Chris, for sharing it. I again, drive it back to people before we jump into the survey. And I often think about the style of people that we're speaking with. We do a lot of disc profiling within our business, and we consider who we're speaking to as we have the conversation, and we change our style of communication to meet it. So if you have somebody who is just give me the high level, just give me the deets, that's fine. But make sure that your reporting meets all of your audience. If you strip it back to clear headlines and weave in member voices and short stories, I think that's really relatable, memorable, and powerful as well, especially important to the members themselves. I'm just very conscious of time. So if everybody would like to jump into the next Mentimeter question, can you see it? Is it live? The last question that we have, as you can see there, is what's one action you'll take away to use with your member data today? Oh, wow. Everybody's jumping on this one. Thank you. So reviewing strategies, analysing data, looking for clarity, being strategic is something that people want to look for. couple of people who aren't sure. Active member engagement, reviewing strategies overall, working on more active engagement strategies. Wonderful. We've got just a minute left, I think, for any questions. Does anybody have any questions?
I might just jump in to help out with questions. Firstly, thank you so much. Do you know, it's really interesting just hearing your insights and then the things that you see popping up in places around you and actually understanding what the connection is between those engagement pieces. And it's so nice to see a lot of that come to life, because I think so many of us are so traditional in the way that we do things. So have we got any questions from anybody? I know that was a jam-packed session. If we don't have any questions right now, what I will do is make sure that I connect you all back in with Chris and Angela, because it's often the way things come afterwards once you've had time to process all of these fantastic insights. And can I ask, are we going to be able to share the slides today, Chris and Angela, with everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
Amazing, fantastic. So big shout out to both Chris and Angela. Now, they both have some fantastic things going on in their spaces, so make sure to connect in with them, learn more about what they're doing. Membership Marketing School's got so much happening at the moment that puts a lot of this action into play. And and for the work that Angela you're doing is just absolutely incredible. I get calls all the time going, thank you for saving the day. Never underestimate a phone call. We're so hesitant not to pick up. It's so easy though, right? So thank you both so very much. Have an amazing afternoon, and we will talk to everybody again soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye
Thanks,
for now.
Angela.
Bye.